I started out as a family planning assistant, but within a month or so of being there, our manager left, and I loved the job, so I applied for the manager's position and got that. So I was the manager of the Storm Lake Center for all the years that I worked there, which was almost 18. And then for 5 of those years, I managed a second center in Le Mars, Iowa. And then 2 of the years that I was there, I served on the Quality Assurance Committee. When they started doing webcam abortion, that is a medical or a chemical abortion that is done with no doctor on site. And so the webcam part enters in because the doctor stays in her office at a central location. In our case, it was Des Moines. And if a client came in at any of the 17 centers around Iowa, the non-medical staff would do the pregnancy test and then a transvaginal ultrasound, which is an invasive medical procedure. And then the image of the baby was scanned to the doctor, and if she determined it was 70 days along or less, they do it to 70 days now. At that time it was 63. The doctor can push a button on her screen that pops open a drawer, like a little cash register drawer, and that's preloaded with the medication for the abortion. So at the clinic, she takes the Mifeprex, and then they send the next set of pills home with her to take there, and that's the misoprostol, and that starts the contractions. So it's a bad thing, bad medical practice. 17 centers in Iowa were going to be doing this, and I asked at the meeting where they were rolling this out, are you going to notify the doctors in the communities where you're doing this? And they said no. And as a matter of fact, we don't want anybody to know that we're doing this until we establish a standard of care, 500 to 1,000 done, before we make an announcement that we're doing it. So I was the last center that was going to go live with these things, and I watched all of my colleagues struggling with a lot of complications, a lot of issues. Some of the other managers said that they had women come back in with, the little tiny 63-day baby in a Ziploc bag. And of course, Planned Parenthood never calls it a baby. They have many terms they use, but products of conception, contents of uterus, we'd say you'll see a heavy period, there may be some tissue or clots, but they were unprepared for many times seeing the little tiny fetus. It was really a process for me to kind of flip sides. In my personal life, I was in a mess, and I was in a church where, when I made the announcement that we were going to be doing these medication abortions, the pastor there wanted to come and escort the women in through the picketers. And I thought, aren't you supposed to be on the other side? So I really started examining that more. I discovered Christian radio in my community. I didn't even know that we had such a thing, and I happened upon it one day, bought a radio, took it into Planned Parenthood, and I would listen to great teaching and music all day. And it was there that I really heard a lot of discussion about abortion and how many babies had died, and finally heard an interview with Iowa Right to Life, and I thought, that's who I need to call. So right there from Planned Parenthood, I called Iowa Right to Life and told them about webcam abortion, because I just kept thinking, someone needs to fix this. And I didn't know anybody pro-life, I didn't know who to call, but that was kind of the catalyst where I called them, and then I kind of started sharing information with them. And of course, at that point, the clinic was basically wired. They had installed all the fiber optics to do the webcam abortion, so they could hear and see everything that was going on. And so I'm sure they knew that I had done that. So it wasn't much longer after that that I ended up getting fired. So finally, someone approached me in Storm Lake and said, tell me about webcam abortion, what goes on there? And so I told 5 or 6 pro-life people, and the horror on their faces really convicted my heart. And I felt like, here I am the only person that knows what's going on, and I'm too chicken to say anything. So it was at that point really that we talked about 40 Days for Life. We had, 6 weeks or so to get ready, and I was terrified by the prospect of leading this after having been, the long-term manager there. And my whole focus was on letting people know about webcam abortion, but so many were praying that the place would close. And I knew that it would not close because during my last months there, I had signed a 15-year lease. And so when they made the announcement a month or two after we had gotten done with our prayer vigil that it was closing, I couldn't believe it. And here that's exactly what so many had prayed for. Planned Parenthood of Greater Iowa had merged with several other affiliates in Iowa and became this massive, 29 clinic affiliate. And Storm Lake was the first one to close. And since then, 21 of those have closed. We have 8 left. We saw the governor of Virginia discussing a full-term baby and making it comfortable, giving it a blanket while you talk with the mother about what do we want to do with this baby. Life issues are something that, people tend to think, well, I'm past that. I would never have an abortion. I'm in favor of life, but it's not really my battle because, I don't know anybody that's having an abortion or whatever. But we have Roe v. Wade from 1973 because the church was asleep and good people didn't step up and say, wait a minute, and here we are 61 million babies later, and we're still sacrificing children really on the altar of convenience. But 40 Days for Life is a fantastic tool in the 40 days in the spring and the 40 days in the fall. In the years that 40 Days has been in existence, we've seen 16,004 babies saved. And those are the ones that we know about. Those are the ones that, a pregnant mom turns around and comes back and says, I had an appointment in there last week and I didn't go in because somebody was standing here. And sometimes women will say, I don't want to have an abortion. God, if you don't want me to do this, put a sign, send me a sign so that I know I shouldn't do it. And they'll get to the abortion facility and there's one lone person out there holding a sign, or just standing quietly and praying, and that's the sign. The woman takes that as a sign and she'll turn around and leave. That reminds me of the Sing a Little Louder from World War II, where the folks were in church and they heard the trains going by and they were full of people going to the concentration camps. And, instead of doing something, they sang louder. They turned the music up, the organ up, so that they wouldn't have to hear that. And to not be part of helping is to be part of the problem. And that is a lesson from history that certainly serves us well in the pro-life world. We don't want to sing a little louder. We want to get up, get out of the pew and go outside and help.